Hey, I'm Becky Worley. I'm a correspondent on Good Morning America, coming to you from San Francisco, our studio here. And this is the Boost Podcast with Mark Francis and Pippa Dunford joining this morning. We are excited to talk to you about all things adjusting to the current situation in the world. Pippa, start us out. Where are you coming from?
Well, hi, good morning, everybody. I'm here from sunny Surbiton, just south of London, in a beautifully warm yet windy day, at home, like many of us, and with my 3 children, all individually doing activities. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, the big theme now is multitasking. I'd love to talk to you both about how do you multitask, because you are natural multitaskers. You know, you're business owners, you are consultants, you're mums, you have before the pandemic been multitaskers, and you may well have changed 1 or 2 rituals now. And I'd love to hear about that and share it if we could.
Yeah, I think mom and multitasker are synonymous, aren't they, Pippa?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 12-year-old twins. You have, what are the age of your kids?
9, 14, and 15. 2 teenagers and 1 in training, as I call it.
Well, I think we both have escaped the fate of the parents of young children who are trying to multitask during this stay-at-home, shelter-in-place situation, because I think right around middle school is when it gets a little bit easier to manage your kids during distance learning. So I have a lot of respect for the parents who are multitasking while also trying to keep 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds and God forbid toddlers busy. But I think, you know, Mark, when you talk about multitasking, we all do it now because of this thing, the phone. It's our office that follows us everywhere. And so we've been in training for extreme multitasking, the likes of which we're experiencing through the coronavirus. We've been in training with our technology for years. We know to check and see who's screaming the loudest. Is it our kids? Is it our spouse? Is it the need for dinner? Or is it our boss? And so there's something to be said for the fact that technology has really prepared us for this moment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there's one also thing that it's helped us recognize is that we have always been always on. You know, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, your phone enables you to be connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But also, I think the fact that not being able to go out and do what you normally do has emphasized the fact that how fantastic always being on is, yet when is your downtime? And I think it's really exacerbated that fact when you're at home trying to do all the things, whether it's the children, whether it's the husband, whether it's the meals, whether it's the washing, which would normally be happening maybe out of your work hours. Suddenly it's all coming in together. And there is a challenge, I think, to all of us to say, when am I going to actually switch that off? When do I spend that quality time? Because we're here at home with everybody for the foreseeable at the moment. And I think it's really important that we have time to switch off and switch on to both people and work and energy and yourself and your family. That's really important. And I think it's really highlighted the technology is both a support and perhaps, you know, a bit of a concern right now because it is so easy.
I've written switch off. I'm going to capture some of the things you say, because switching off technology instead of making it our third arm, I think, is massively important. I find it a stress creator to have this thing on all the time. So the conscious, although difficult, act of switching off is super important. Now, Pippa, I'd love you to share with us. You were a mother with a partner bringing up kids until there was a tragedy in your family and we lost Dodge at an incredibly young age.
Yeah.
So your multitasking has been as a single parent. What's your insight about that?
Being able to step change, I think, really fundamentally is the biggest thing you can have to get your head around, that you are going to do things differently. You have to do things differently. And you can't do everything, I would say, are the big things. So my husband died at the age of 46. I had 3 young children at that time. They were 3, 7, and 9. So the multitasking aspect wasn't an option. It was there. So it was a case of what's my priorities? How do I associate? How do I recognize what do I absolutely need to do, what do I want to do, and what do I need to let go of. And I absolutely needed to create my family as a really strong unit. I needed to pull them in tight. I needed to talk to them. I needed to emotionally support them. I needed help. And that's what I needed. And everything else sort of paled to insignificance. So that's to help me get through. But I think also, what did I want to do? I wanted to be supermum, like every mother, I think. I wanted to carry on doing all that I was doing and achieving. I wanted to be able to communicate. I wanted to keep my emotions in check. I wanted to make sure my kids were absolutely wonderful and it hadn't really affected them. So then I had to recognize what I needed to let go of. I needed to let go of those kind of comparisons, those expectations, those things that really didn't matter. And I think sometimes when you have these, what I would call a slap in the face in life, it brings you back into perspective, and it really homes down to what's important both to you and others. And in terms of the multitasking word, I just call it my day-to-day. But the things I would say, one of the things I really pulled out is looking out for others, actually, first, because I'm sure, like every mum and dad on this earth, if my kids are okay, I'm okay. That took on a new meaning. But if I could make sure that they were sorted, I could go and deal with whatever I was feeling at a later date or later or behind closed doors. And so your priorities really change. And one thing that I really felt quite liberated with was the ability to be able to say, no, I can't do that. So my priorities were really, really clear. I had a full-time job, a part-time job. My husband obviously wasn't there anymore. I was looking at where am I going to earn. I decided to set up a company and work for myself to have that flexibility. But what really shone through is I could only do what I could do. And so when people ask me, can you pop over here? Can you travel here? Can you come and see this client? Can you do this for me? If my children's life needs day-to-day dictated that I couldn't, it was very liberating to be able to say, absolutely no, I can't. And so multitasking is also the ability to understand what you need, understand what you want, but also the ability to let go and say no. And it definitely gave that to me.
Such an amazing experience of clarity that obviously came from a lot of soul searching on your part during this really difficult time. You identified what your values were and you prioritized your values, which is such a big picture thinking exercise to get all the dominoes in place going forward that you so obviously did. As you were speaking, it really resonated for me, some ideas that I had both during kind of when my kids were little and I was also working, and had challenges, not as a single parent, but a lot of challenges. And I think the way that I articulated it is, number one, I do not have infinite capacity. And accepting that and letting others know that that is true was the starting point for the kind of decision making and the ability to say no that you're talking about. The second thing is compartmentalizing. How do we take things and separate them into boxes and keep boundaries between those boxes, even though in our lives they're intermeshing in a hourly, minute by minute, second by second way? And then the answer to that, once you've separated those things and got boundaries, is triaging. You know, I know, Mark, that you've really made this podcast about honoring the NHS, and triaging is the medical term where you put those with the greatest, most urgent needs first, and you manage those situations first because they are of the most urgent need, and then you get to the things that are kind of secondary and tertiary. So you really laid out a value structure which allowed you to do that, Pippa.
Absolutely, and I totally agree, particularly with the second one. I used to really get frustrated with my husband because I don't know if it was him or whether it was a male trait, but he was brilliant at compartmentalizing, and I used to fit into lots of those compartments, and he couldn't talk about one and the other at the same time. It used to drive me crazy. I said, I do know about that and this, but he couldn't. And I have adapted that. I recognize that now, that actually that focus, that discipline to be able to concentrate, compartmentalize and achieve is really, really important. And it's a small tick list of each time that you do that.
There's a story that someone told me. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Becky, I've got to challenge you for a second. If Emmy or Finn were sitting in listening to the point that you made about, you've got to compartmentalize, and you've got to sometimes say no, we've been talking about, you're someone who always says yes. So you've just done a piece for Good Morning America. It's crazy early in the morning where you are. You're just about to do another piece, and you said yes to this Boostcast. So how do you say no, and how do you switch off?
Well, there's an interesting paradigm here, because I think at a certain point in life, as you're growing as a person, and this is especially true for younger people and as athletes, Mark, you coach, I coach, our reserves have reserves. We can dig deep, and we're looking at a time right now where we all need to dig deep. So there's a point where you can go hard, but you can't go hard all the time. You can sprint, but you can't sprint 26.2 miles. So how do you figure out whether you're in the sprint or the marathon? And when do you say, uh-oh, this just turned into a middle distance race and I haven't changed gears? I think I'm in trouble. That's where that recognition of not having infinite capacity comes in.
But Becky, you are a miracle worker, because the last time you and I were together, which was, I think, March the 12th,
yes,
you just had a knee operation. You're supposed to be recuperating. And
here are my crutches right here.
You're saying, right? You should be resting, and you've never been more popular with Good Morning America, because your expertise as a tech expert and also a consumer expert has never been more precious. So you are saying yes when maybe you should be relaxing, right?
Well, as I said to the kids the other day, I had to paraphrase from something that we adults speak of often, but if you're going to eat caca, and you have to eat caca, eat all the caca in one sitting. So I am definitely in a suffer fest right now, because I'm on crutches. I'm working like I've never worked. So if you're gonna do it, I'm sprinting, sprint hard. And there I can see in the distance that I have to rest, but I'm not there yet. I'm compartmentalizing. And that's sort of a skill that I think you get in the news business, because when a story breaks, you're all in and you have to cover it until that phase of the news cycle goes out, and then you rest. And so our business is built on extreme cycles of sprinting and resting, troughs and peaks.
Yes, and I think that's really valid in today's situation. Maybe not the story that breaks, but for me, it's about if I can see other people are breaking, whether it's my children or whether it's my work colleagues or whether it's my coaches, or if I can see that they are breaking because I'm not there giving them the right support, if I haven't changed gear sufficiently, then I'm no use to anybody, and I can see that they're suffering for it. And they might not be performing well, they might not be communicating well, they might be reverting back to sort of like a bad energy on a bad day, and that doesn't help anybody or anything and almost sets them back. So I think absolutely you can wait for the third party to break the story and compartmentalize, or you can consciously adjust it, so, preferably before you see any kind of recognition of it elsewhere, but particularly in the people, I think.
That's right. Pippa, I want to circle back. We were talking about how to become a compartmentalizer. Yeah. And someone told me a story that really helped me to become a compartmentalizer. And this was a producer I had who was simultaneously learning to become a pilot. He wanted to be an aviator for fun, not a commercial pilot. And he said that when you are learning to fly, one of the last lessons they teach you is how to crash land the plane. So how to crash the plane comes with a story, which is that when you lose an engine, when you've lost communication with the ground, and this is what they teach to commercial pilots who have a whole plane full of passengers in the back. He said, inevitably, you will hear screaming in the back. The plane is diving. You can't focus on the screaming. Inevitably, you will try and right the plane and get to the ground, but somehow, the worst thing that could happen is that the flight attendant comes into the cockpit and says, people are complaining because there's no more free drinks. Yeah. So you have to figure out what you can listen to, what you can't listen to, and what is of utmost priority. So when things feel like they are on fire, when you've lost an engine, when you're nose diving into the ground and you're trying to right the plane, you cannot listen to the people complaining because the drinks cart has been depleted in the back. So that image always sits with me when it feels like it's craziness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things, isn't it, where when all around are losing their heads, who stays calm kind of thing. In certain situations, you know, when we have meetings and there's always going to be one that goes a bit more energetic, one that goes a bit more quiet, and one that snaps a bit, you know, you can consciously think, how is it you want to be and what you have to do to make that happen. And sometimes that is being a little bit comfortable with the uncomfortable, and it's a little bit, it's a bit draining, but it's worth it. It's worth it to keep that focus.
Can I ask a question of both of you? What are your rituals now in terms of getting this balance? Because you are multitasking. I've got a whole list of things that both of you apply to here, because you're both tech support, you're office managers, etc., right? The list is there. What are the rituals you are adopting now to strike this balance?
Becky, you go first.
Well, I guess what I would say is I live in a chaos world, in a chaotic environment because of the nature of my work. And so what I try to do is take even 30 seconds before I put my feet on the floor every morning and ask, what is my intention for this day? And if I can sort of articulate to myself, I really noticed that one of the kids was having a hard time with their distance learning. And that's the thing that when I went to bed really bugged me. The rest of it will take care of itself. But I just need to have some intentionality around that today. Or, gosh, I really didn't plug into my partner and I know that she's not feeling well taken care of. If I do one thing today, that's going to be it. So intentionality is probably where it comes to for me.
Yeah. For me, a lot of my world at the moment, as in everybody's, is virtually. And I'm doing a lot virtually, and you know, I'm a big tactile person. I actually want to give people a hug. So for me, both for my home life and for my work life, it's about having points in the day where people come together. So we have, as a family, always are having lunch together. I mean, we often do, everyone needs to eat, but I've got teenagers who could be out of sync with normal life. So we come together 2 or 3 times a day, and we sit in the morning, we just say, kind of, what's the plan for the day? When are we going to come together? And it's really keen that we all do something all together, because to communicate, to understand, to listen, to feel people's emotions, and to have empathy really with each other. And that's also true in the work world. There's every day I'm coming together to talk, meet, feedback, be there, counsel, enthuse or motivate, or have a shoulder to cry on for those people in that situation. And that has been phenomenally rewarding for everybody. I run a breakfast club for women in the same situation as me, independent working women, balancing the life of work and life and parenting. And it's been astonishingly fantastic how much that come together has been needed on a weekly basis. We used to meet every 8 weeks. The need is now. The need to have some affirmation that it's okay, some ability to be able to say no, as we talked about earlier. What can you let go of? And for many people, they need to voice that they've let that go, because it's okay. And so they're coming together and feeling other people's needs and emotions and ups and downs. You know, people need people, and people need to be needed. And those are 2 things that, by coming together every day, particularly even more so in our times of isolation, is probably the ritual that I instigate most, both personally and professionally, which so far, we're in week 4. It's working.
I think that the people need people aspect is so interesting. We're all Zooming all the time, right? And we do feel connected in groups like this. But one thing I've noticed that's helped a lot is I pick up the phone a lot more. And I just make a phone call much more than I normally would. There's a lot more nuance in what's going on. There's a lot more, I don't think I want to do that. My rule, I've worked remotely for 16 years now. My rule always is I never express anything negative over email. And I never express or try and negotiate anything nuanced over email. Detail, yes, list all the detail. But when it comes to nuance and negative, pick up the phone. And I also am just trying to read the tea leaves of what's going on with all my coworkers. And that's hard to do in a Zoom call, like at an authentic level.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is about connecting, whichever format that takes. And we sit down and I'm trying to manage privacy in calls. It's okay to walk in on calls. Don't forget, I've got 3 meals to cook a day suddenly. Where did that come from? We haven't had that for a while. And so actually at the beginning of the day, and this is relevant in professional work as well, totally, and more so, where we sort of sit and go, right, what's everyone's priorities today? What do you actually want to get done? And from a children's perspective, it's really lovely to manage. It's easy. But you can replicate this in the professional world too. In my work example, what is it I really need to get done today? What's the most important thing? What do you really want to do? What do we need to do today? And so that's a case of, okay, everyone will get something that will give them joy, probably for themselves, whether that's connecting or talking or doing, whatever. Then there's also something about doing it together. That's really important too, because there is a challenge, I think, for all of us from a mental health point of view is, you could go through your day, and I'm sure many people, many families and many work colleagues are, where you actually don't really talk. You do a Zoom call and you talk about things, but you don't really talk. And so therefore to connect and really get your priorities and what you need and want to do is vital in order for people to have their chance, to have their moment, and to make sure that they got something for them and are giving.
And Pippa, if I could build on that, and Becky, you'll love this, because what have we done on those lines, Pippa, as a family? So I've got 2 out of 3 sons at home. James is in LA and doing fine, which is good news. The 2 sons I've got are 27 and 18. And we do 2 things together every day. One is we always have one family meal together, which we rotate the chef doing, which is really cool and a great learning exercise. And we also have a reading club. So we make sure we all read something every day, and then we get together and we share what we've learned from that reading. And those 2 connectivity as a family events are incredible, actually, to the point where Debs and I were saying this morning, we are definitely going to continue to do those 2 things beyond the pandemic. So this is bringing some opportunities to be better as a family, certainly from my point of view.
It's interesting, Mark, because I love that you guys are coming together, and as after your kids are teenagers and there's that sort of schism and you go apart, this is an opportunity to come together. And I think that is so powerful, and it's such a blessing, silver lining in this. With parents who have younger kids, there is so much togetherness right now. They are drowning in togetherness. And so I wanted to sort of flip the funnel a little bit and just offer a few very practical tips for parents who are trying to multitask with younger kids. Number 1 is, many people feel like they cannot get away from their kids and they need to focus, especially people who work in data and detail. And I wanted to let everybody know about a home office opportunity that's available to you, and it's called Your Car. You can go to your car and work there. I have a lot of friends who they are basically time sharing the car with their spouse. So one will go to the car and work in quiet and take calls, and they get close enough to the house where they can get off the Wi-Fi from the house, or else they use the hotspot from their phone. I used to do this all the time when I had to do voiceovers when the kids were really little, and there was no silence whatsoever in our entire home. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, when you are on a call or on a Zoom call, I think everyone's worst fear is that North Korea expert who was on the BBC when his child came trundling into the background of his shot and his wife comes running in hot to grab the kids. But I think we've all accepted that this is not the BBC or ABC or any BC. This is real life. And so if your dog barks or whatever, that's going to be a part of it. lower your standards and use your mute function on your calls. I'm going to do a little trick here. There's also a little software program called Crisp with a K that will delete any noise. So watch this, Mark. So if I'm talking and the dog barks, it's loud. All that ambient noise is horrible. But in your, if you download this software called Crisp, what it does is it acts as a noise canceling. So I'm going to switch over from my normal built-in microphone. You just heard me clapping. Now I'm on my Crisp microphone, and this should work. When I'm talking, you shouldn't hear the clapping.
I can.
Oh, see, maybe sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Darn it. I'll have to put a version of this. If you have it installed all the time, it will, I tested it before. Oh, I didn't have the mute on. Let's see if it works it now. Let me try, right?
Yeah, so I can't now hear you. The trouble is I can't hear you. I love it. So
that's live TV for you.
Live TV. So do I have to have the app called Crisp, and then it should take out background sound? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, this is a perfect example. Stuff happens. This is exactly what happens in real life. So, you know, your calls are going to have trouble. You're going to be able to fix things later. But, you know, give yourself and your coworkers a break, because we're all just trying to make this work as we go. I've done a lot of live TV, and sometimes the best, most vulnerable connecting moments happen when the bad stuff goes down.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And just to build on that, you know, particularly with the parents with young children, you know, especially when they're making their memories, I heard somebody say really pertinent point about what is it we want to remember when we come out of this. And from a child's perspective, more often than not, they are going to remember COVID-19, coronavirus around the world. That was the time when mum and or dad and mum, whoever, was at home. That's when I saw lots of them. And for me, that was really, for any parent, I think, it really strikes a chord of, I have to actively think about managing my compartmentalization and my time to be there, because I personally know that I don't want to be that parent, even though I'm on my own and I'm doing everything. I still don't want to be that parent where they go, oh yes, Corona-19, I was in the office all the time and I had to entertain myself. And that's the emotional connection, along with that it's okay. You know, it's okay to spend time with your children. It's okay. Set yourselves what you need to do. And it comes back to the very first point at the beginning, the needs, wants, and what I can say no to. What do you need to do? Achieve that, get that done, spend the time where you need to spend the time, whoever and wherever that may be, and feel that you have done the right thing for you and for your family. And at this time, that is what's really important. And it's, if you want to play with your children all day, it's still training, it's still teaching, it's still educating, you're still growing, they're still learning. It's just not a textbook or you know, or a HR manual. It's a different way, but it's still a fantastic way. So do what you need to do, I think, would be my absolute message from all of this multitasking. Do what you need for you and for others. I really do believe that.
Yeah, one of the things that I have been incredibly conscious of in this time, when I have two of my boys at home, which is awesome, by the way, and very rare now as they're grown up, is whenever either one of them, Ben or Tom, starts to talk to me, I stop what I'm doing, I turn and I face them and I say, yes. Now, I know that sounds ridiculously simple, but actually, Mr. Multitasker, business must come first, I'm on a computer, and I'm usually, the old me would say, yeah, well, what is it? That's the worst type of multitasking. It's not who I want to be. And I think the consciousness of who we are being right now is what I'm hearing is massively important, because we can help ourselves be better right now and consistently.
And we're adults. We're all here talking from an adult perspective, and we can do that, and we can consciously make that thought process and that change and whatever needs to be done. My youngest, who's 9, and probably that peak time of hearing all that's going on, understanding that people are dying. The world is in lockdown. They can't see their friends. Their routine's been disrupted. And I'm sure we've all kind of read the things, oh, these children hear it and they will be affected. And you're there in your home thinking, oh, we're okay. But actually, my youngest is not. She is less patient. She's more tearful. She gets cross at everything. She's frustrated. Well, these are the actions. I've now realised that she is frustrated. She is a little scared. She is worried that probably mummy won't be here if she catches coronavirus, having already had one parent. She is feeling that I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I've got all this bubbling inside of me and I'm not an adult. I don't know that I can just temper it down. And so from a child's perspective, it could be a really scary time. And it's about that. That's what's important. You know, they will be fine if we spend that moment and our needs and our time to get them into the right place. And that's the same for working world. That's the same for the people that I coach. It's the same for any business out there. We will be fine physically and emotionally, touch wood, and I sympathise with absolutely everybody who is poorly. But this is the time to recognise and to go, you know, look after your people. They will get you through it. The tin of beans won't get you through it. The people will. And that is what really matters.
I've lowered my expectations. I know, Mark, you say I'm trying to do a lot, and I am, but I think I've lowered my expectations about what can be achieved in this time. And it aligns much more with what you're talking about, Pippa, about what our kids will remember. One of the stories I'm working on, I've asked 10 teenagers to record video diaries and tell me what they're missing, what has been surprisingly good about the coronavirus time and the lockdown, and what their worries are. And you really have hit the nail on the head. They are uncertain. The uncertainty of everything that they've built their lives on, sports, school, getting into college, all of these things has been pulled out from underneath them, and they're all struggling with the uncertainty of the near and long-term future. They're also feeling micromanaged by their parents, especially teenagers who experience some level of independence in the world. And now in their home, they feel like they've reverted into their 11-year-old lives. They miss their friends, and they're finding that digital isn't good enough, which might be the saving grace for this generation. They're realizing that actual human contact is key. Yeah. They're staying up late to have their only alone time in their own home. So they've put themselves on a different time zone, basically, to get some autonomy. And I think going back to that idea of comfortable with uncertainty, that was a great book by Pema Chodron, someone whose work I like a lot. That concept of just how do we help ourselves, our partners, our children, our coworkers to be comfortable with this uncertainty. I don't have good answers, but I know that's the job.
And I'd love to hear what those teenagers say, because I absolutely empathise with all of those feelings that they must be feeling. And I'm trying not to micromanage, but they're 16 nearly. They should be out with their mates having the summer of their lifetime, and they are gutted, they're frustrated, they're lonely, actually. So they've got all that, as well as the younger ones going on. So, you know, you can't necessarily have a happy household, but you could have a connected one.
So I'm going to ask, Pippa, could you tell us which hospital was amazing at the time when it was difficult with Dodge? Can you call out the NHS?
Absolutely. So I had a quick referral back to our notes. We went to 9 different hospitals in there, but the Royal Marsden in near Epsom is absolutely phenomenal. The William Rouse unit in Kingston Hospital, a specialised cancer unit, fantastic. West Brompton Hospital, where we've had many surgeries, was incredible. Across the board, my husband was very good at putting his hand up to try things, and the willingness of the teams, the doctors, the surgeons, to try things, to have a go, to what's the worst that can happen, attitude, you know what, and my husband, you know, responded well to that. I cannot thank them enough in any way, shape or form. My husband was given 4 to 14 months to live, with the support of the NHS and the determination to enable a young father live for longer. He actually survived for 2.5 years, having various trials and things like that. Not that it was an easy time, but the NHS across the board, and I can't think of one bad example, saved my husband for a longer period and enabled our family to create an infrastructure and a memory to enable us to step forward after the event. And I can't thank them enough. So there's many, every member of staff and every doctor surgeon. So thank you.
I want to build on that. The two hospitals you mentioned are caring for my mum right now. My mum is 89. She is a cancer patient. Her cardiologist is at the Brompton, which you mentioned, and Kingston Hospital is looking after her cancer care. They cancelled her latest, she has a small operation that was cancelled because of the pandemic. And they rang her on Friday and said, could you come in? We need to do a blood test. And mum, God bless her, did what I told her to do. She said, I'm not leaving the house. It's too risky. And Kingston Hospital said, we will arrange for a district nurse to come to your house.
Wow.
We will go into your garden. We will wear protective equipment for your benefit, and we will take the blood test locally. So that just reinforces how amazing the NHS is.
Wow,
and just one more to add. The Bristol Hospital has also supported me when I had cancer at a young age, and thankfully I've come through at the other side. But even all those years ago, the NHS was there and doing its bit and trying and supporting and curing huge amounts of people of all ages, size, description, whatever, they are there. And the last bit is, not only are they there, they're also trying to change right now. So my children have been involved in an immunisation trial over the last 2 weeks, which has now included testing for who has COVID-19. And they, unlike you, Mark, they came to the house, they did the blood tests, and off they went, all masked up. And I was so proud and impressed with the timings, the speed, the intention, the communication that we received to try and support these trials was incredible. So I really hope that they get the results and they get the testing that they need to in order for us to fight COVID-19.
Amazing. I want to give a quick shout out to my sister-in-law, who is working in North Middlesex University Hospital in North London. And she's a physical therapist normally, but she has transitioned to work in the respiratory unit with COVID patients. And she is turning them and they flip them over to try and help their lungs adjust on a regular basis. And so she has transitioned from PT into working directly with COVID-19 patients and training the rest of her staff to do the same. So big shout out to Sarah Ulmer, who is at North Middlesex University Hospital.
Wow. And so we've talked about connectivity being important. I had the pleasure, because I'm involved as a rugby coach, have been for many years, of watching Alma play for Canada. So an amazing athlete, and now doing such a great job in North Middlesex, which is an incredible hospital. I'd love to, I'm going to reflect on an amazing program that helped me learn my maths called Sesame Street. And at this time, they're recommending 3 things: get your rituals right, be flexible, and then they're saying, make sure you breathe. And so my final question to both of you is, if one of your children was to give you a piece of advice about how you can also live and breathe, apart from doing all the things you're doing, which are amazing, what advice would they give you now?
Oh, great question. Great question. Becky.
Oh man, well, okay. I did ask, I don't know, I had some sense that you were going to ask something about what the kids think, Mark. So it's not exactly an answer to this question, but I asked my son Finn what he thought was important about connecting with people through technology. And so this is a little off topic, but from the mouths of babes, right? He said, repeat important facts, call out people by name when you want them to talk, tell people to mute their microphones, and to remember to ask questions of people who are shy. So I thought that was really good advice. What he would tell me is probably, Mom, we need to watch some more TV together.
Yeah. I think I could probably answer that one. Is all of them would say, Mum, it's okay. It doesn't have to be so perfect. It doesn't have to be top standard. If I'm worrying about not doing the right presentation, getting there on time, My computer blew up on me that last week, so I spent many hours, and they're just saying, it's all right, it doesn't really matter. Just do what you can do. And that's them saying, that might be my cooking. It's okay. But I would say, they would say, don't set your standards too high, Mum. Just get on with what you can do.
What about you, Marky? What would the boys say?
Well, they're giving me loads of great advice. When they see that I'm stressed, I'm overworking is my biggest challenge. Ben just says, Dad, go for a run, go for a walk, chill out. And it really helps me just get out of that fug of I must do more, which is the natural energy. And it's helping me tremendously, to be fair.
I think there is one thing you can't do at all. And we, at the very start of this, wrote out my list of what I'd like to get done around the house, not work. The list was about 30 points, but I thought if we could all do it together, it would help me out, keep us busy, and you know what, it'd be a bit of good time. And we're slowly getting through that list, and there is a small momentum of enthusiasm, and they're ticking it off. So I would definitely say make that list, get those jobs done that you've put off for a long time.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to call out that our first Boostcast, which was last week, got 113 views. Every view we get, and we encourage, is a bigger donation to the NHS. And while we're getting about 113, Becky, I think this morning you got about 1.3 million. So just by comparison. So.
Well, what's a few noughts between friends, hey?
Yeah. Well, it'll all come, Mark. As Pippa said, building momentum, good cause.
So guys, stay safe, stay hopeful, and thank you so much for your time today.